Hey, AJH dogs, we are getting ready to learn about genetics. Now, I found out that some of your papers or your packets do not have all the papers in it. So if you don't have them, please email me and I will be glad to come and get them, run them off for you. This you're going to need, so let's pay attention. Okay? All right, here we go. We're going to be talking about Gregor Mendel. Gregor Mendel is actually the father of genetics. He was a monk. He stayed by himself and he worked in the garden. That's why it says that his study began with pea plants. He decided that he wanted to find out if he could make his plants have exactly what he wanted, whether they were tall or short, and if he could decide whether he was going to be able to do that. Now, he found that you had dominant traits that showed up and could overpower any other trait. A trait's actually what's going to show up, whether you're a tall plant or a short plant. So he had dominant traits. His first combination, all of them were tall, okay? Because it all had a dominant trait. Well, how did he predict that? He used a Punnett Square. A Punnett Square gives you the ability to find out whether it's going to predict what trait it's going to have. Okay, well, Gregor Mendel started, and dominant traits always have a capital letter. Recessive traits, they get covered up. They don't show through unless they have two of the same traits. Now let me show you what I mean by that. He started with a Punnett Square, and he had all tall plants, okay? Now, when you cross this over, what you do is you say, this is this is mom, this is dad. So mom and dad go together. Dominants will always go first. All right, when I cross this one, mom and dad, look here, I've got two different ones. All right, we're going to keep crossing. Two dominants. Down here, dominant and a recessive. Well, this is our first generation. So, since they all have a dominant trait in them, they all are tall. Every single one of them. Okay? All right. We're going to take, so the probability, all this is 100%. 100% tall. All 100% tall because each one of them carries a dominant trait. Well, then what he did was, he took the second generation. Okay? So second generation, some of them were dominant and some of them were like this, right? So we're going to go back and we're going to see what they were. So second generation is like that. Get it? So dominant and dominant, this plant's tall. Dominant, recessive, this plant's tall. Dominant, recessive, this one's tall. Recessive, recessive, this one's short. Okay? So the probability of it to be short is 1 out of 4 or 25%. See what I did there? Okay. Now, the trait is the characteristics passed to the offspring. What if I had, let's do one that you guys ask a lot about, like blue eyes. Blue eyes happens to be recessive. Okay? So, brown eyes are dominant and blue eyes are recessive. Okay? Dominant and recessive, their eyes are brown. Dominant and recessive, their eyes are brown. Dominant, recessive, eyes are brown. Dominant, recessive, eyes are brown. All of these, 100%. Now get this one. I've got blue eyes, but my mom has dark brown eyes. How did I get blue eyes? Dominant, recessive. That's my sister. She's got brown. Recessive, recessive. Dominant, recessive, recessive, recessive. So I know my mom has the recessive gene. Why? I have blue eyes. So it's a 50-50 chance that I got blue eyes. My sister got brown, I got blue. That's 50-50 chance. Okay? All right. Now, the words we have here, dominant, only has to have one gene present to show the trait, like in our Punnett Square. If it has one big letter or one dominant, that's what it's going to be. Recessive has to have two of those genes for it to show up. If it doesn't have two, it can't show up, it can't be there. Phenotype means the letter combination. In other words, it shows you dominant gene and recessive gene, like in the Punnett Square. Phenotype is the physical characteristic. Remember when I said my sister had brown eyes and I have blue eyes? That's the phenotype. Pheno is like physical. Geno is the genes, what the genes tell us. Okay? That's genotype and phenotype. So if I had a rabbit, say I had a rabbit, and one had brown hair, brown fur, and the other one had white. Sorry. Okay? I cross. This one has brown fur. This one has white fur. Brown fur, white fur. Okay? So what is, I want to look at this one right here. What is his genotype? Genotype is BB. Phenotype, what shows up? White fur. Got it? Hope so. All right. Now, when we look at this right here and we talk about the probability, this is the likelihood that the event will occur. It can be written two different ways, like 1 out of 4 or 25%. But let's look at our little rabbit here. What is the probability that it will have white fur? Has to have 2, so the probability would be 2 out of 4 or 50%. Got it? All right. Now, we're going to go up here for just a minute. An allele is the possible form of the gene that resides on our chromosome. Now, I know some of you say, well, I've got green eyes. Where does that come in? Different alleles in different places on our alleles give us those different cues. Eyes are a little tricky sometimes. They're not just definite because we don't have just brown eyes or we don't just have green eyes. Okay? Heterozygous and homozygous. Different alleles. Heterozygous means they're two different ones. They're not the same. Homozygous means having two alleles that are the same, which means it usually shows up, it can show up 2 homozygous dominant, or it can show up 2 homozygous recessive. They have the same alleles, okay? Or even the same genotype, okay? Always remember, hetero means opposites, homozygous means same. So H-O-M-O means same, okay? One last thing we're going to go over. Boy or girl. We always wonder, how do we decide whether it's going to be a boy or a girl? Well, here's the deal. Remember when we talked about meiosis and mitosis? We didn't get to meiosis. Meiosis is actually when the cells duplicate. But in meiosis, they only duplicate half the number of chromosomes, which gets me to this number right here, these two words right here. Every species has a certain amount of chromosomes, like a diploid number, okay? We actually have 46 chromosomes. But what would happen if I had a chromosome from mom and a chromosome from dad, and they both had 46 in them? It would be doubled. I would be huge. Can you imagine how big the cells would be? There's no way the cells could contain that. So the only cells that reduce the number of chromosomes that they have, or what they pass on, is going to be the ones that become a new offspring, okay? They all only have a haploid number. They go through the process, and instead of making an absolute duplicate cell, it makes a haploid cell, okay? So if the diploid number of a human is 46, its haploid number is, you got it, 23, okay? All right, so they've gone through the reduction of cells, and now dad's going to give us one cell, and mom's going to give us one cell. But remember, only half the cells are in there, or half the chromosomes are in there. Mom's happen to be exactly the same. She gives us exactly the same chromosomes. But dad, he has an XY chromosome. Why? Well, that's because he's a boy. Plain and simple. So X and Y and X and X. Mom can only give us X. Dad can give us X or Y. Now, take my Punnett Square. X and X. I have a girl. X and X. I have a girl. X, Y. I have a boy. Y, X. I have a boy. So whenever we have children, what is the probability that it's going to be a boy? Easy. 50%. What would it be if I had a girl? Again, 50%. So this answers the question, who gets to decide whether it's going to be a boy or a girl? Dad, because he only has the chromosome that's different. Get it? All right, you're on your own now. Have any questions? Email me. We'll see if we can get Mrs. Prough on Zoom, and maybe that'll answer some questions and we can interact. Okay? See you later, guys.